Hey there everyone, Paler here, and welcome back. Today we are in Star Citizen, and we're going to start what I promised in a previous update video. We're going to start talking about the individual ships, or series of ships. Today we're going to be covering the 300 series, but in particular the 300i. Thing to note, all of this is work in progress. These ships are not finished. The game mechanics are not finalized. In fact, the 300 series is scheduled for an update pass. So everything I'm about to say could change, and if it does change, I plan on coming back and updating the video either with annotations, or if it changes enough, I will take this video down and make another one. Mainly doing this first because I know the 300 series. The 300i was actually my first ship that I bought. This was my original pledge some 3+ years ago. I got the 300i. And at the time, it seemed cool. They were promising a sleek, elegant ship that was designed to get you from point A to point B in both luxury, but with also some great features to it. Unfortunately, the 300 series has kind of been left behind with the game mechanics as they've evolved, at least with what we have currently available to play to us. Origin Jumpworks, they are your BMW, your Mercedes-Benz of the Star Citizen universe. And the ship itself, from the outset, and from the inside too, does look pretty darn slick. Now, this is all subjective, obviously, but I think it is a very sexy looking ship. It's basically a large engine with a cockpit strapped on the front of it and a few airfoils on the side. I think it looks pretty good. Even the cockpit, inside the cockpit, the actual controls and mechanics and all that, I like. I really think it looks good. It's got a nice, clean, sleek look to it that I kind of prefer over a lot of the other ships I've flown, though it could just be familiarity with it. I think even the chair, getting in and out of the chair looks good. Climbing up the ladders, getting into the back of, the cargo area of the ship looks good. All those things look good. Unfortunately, beyond that, the ship doesn't do much of anything beyond looking good and being actually relatively fast. It's not the fastest, but it is relatively fast. The ship does very little to set itself apart and bring any utility to the game world as it is. The way the ship is right now, there's 4 versions of the ship. You have the base model, the 300i, which you're seeing here. You have an upgraded 315P, which is a planetary exploration model. This ship basically comes with a little bit larger jump engine, greater warp distance. It's going to have a planetary scanner, and I believe it also has tractor beams. At least that's what it's supposedly, according to the spec sheet, it's going to have some sort of tractor beams on it. You then have the 325A, the interdiction model. This guy has an interdiction. It's your combat role version of the 300 series. So an interdictor to bring other ships out of warp or prevent them going to warp, I believe at least. Possibly cruise. We'll talk about that later on. It also packs a little bit more firepower. It has some heavy, large anti-ship missiles mounted on its rear wings. And then there is the 350R racing model. Let's actually talk about the 350R first and get it out of the way. The 350R is the stripped down version of this. It has no cargo capacity. It's basically been made as light as possible with as large of an engine as possible to go as fast as possible. And as far as racers go, it's pretty competent. It's fairly good. The problem here is the M50, which is also done by Origin Jumpworks, is by most standards considered a better racer, and it's a cheaper racer. You can get the M50 when they do put it on sale for $100. The 350R is $125. So you have 2 ships that are very comparable. One's a little more maneuverable, a little bit faster, whereas the other one's a little more, a little more maneuverable, but a little more hard to control, where the other one's a little bit easier to control, but not quite as fast. So you have a little bit of trades off here or there, but $25 difference. If you're looking just at a racing ship, I got to go with the M50. So the 350R, while not a bad racing ship, it's hard to justify its price. So that out of the way, let's focus on the other 3 ships. Within the current game world, as I was saying, there's just not a whole lot for this ship to do. There's currently no cargo for anybody to haul, and even if there was cargo to haul, the 300 series doesn't haul much at all. So the base model and the interdiction model have 4 cargo units. The exploration model has 6 cargo units. Almost nothing can really go in that. Even the Aurora, the entry-level ship, has 11 or 12 cargo units that can be carried. Much more, not much more, but 3 times more than what the base model 300i or the 325A can carry. So you're not going to be hauling a lot of cargo. The ship is fast from point A to point B, though it's not the fastest out there. In terms of performance, it's basically the exact same as the Saber, which is a fast ship. Now, these numbers we do know are changing. They are changing the combat speeds, but as it stands in 2.5, currently the top combat speed of this thing is 270. It does have boost, but I'm not sure off the top of my head what its max boost speed is. And then it has a cruise speed of 700. Exact same as the Saber, 270, 700 warp. So it is a fast ship. Now, there are actually fasters. For example, the Gladius is actually 280 combat speed, a little bit faster in a straight line. Maneuverability-wise, it's acceptable. It's not as maneuverable as the Saber, though that's to be expected. When you spin this thing around, it does take it a little bit of time to bleed off that forward thrust and get going the other direction. It just doesn't have that spin up that the Saber does, but that's to be expected. It is reasonably maneuverable, though. It's also got a relatively small profile. So the wings are mostly cosmetic. I say mostly because obviously there is a landing gear on each wing. There is also the primary weapon mounts are on each wing. You have one on the left wing, one on the right wing, on the outer edge. These are Omniski 6 lasers. We'll talk about them here in a moment. But the wings, other than that, are mostly cosmetic. If you lose a wing, you definitely lose half to a third, or a third to half of your firepower, depending on how you have the ship loaded out, which isn't good. But in terms of like life support systems, the ship being able to move, so the propulsion, the direction, the maneuvering thrusters and all that, those are all mounted on the center chassis. And the center chassis, when you're coming at this ship from above, below, left, right, it is a narrow profile. It's a little tough to hit, which is the one saving grace that this ship has. The guns, as I said beforehand, the guns are a mixed bag, and this is going to be very much dependent on you as the pilot. The Omniski 6 lasers, these are tier 2 lasers, size 2 lasers. They pack a hell of a punch, but they don't have a whole lot of sustainability. You can only get off roughly about 15 blasts of them in row before they go ahead and they drain the power system, and then you got to let them recharge. You also can only get off maybe about 30 blasts over the course of a minute before they're going to be overheating the system. So they have real heavy heat draw, or real heavy power draw with a lot of heat output. They don't have a lot of sustain. If you're good at lining up a shot, unloading 4 to 6 blasts and doing a whole lot of damage, they pack a punch and they will tear through targets pretty quick. However, if you're like me and you're not the best shot and you want something with higher rate of fire, these things just aren't my preferred cup of tea. Obviously, they can be changed out. You can go ahead and swap them in and out with almost anything else. You could even upgrade the cooling plant. In fact, we'll try that. Though that right now the cooling plant doesn't seem to do much enough to really offset the heat output of these guys. There's the option to mount a third gun up underneath the nose. This is where actually on the interdictor, I believe the interdiction item, weapon, whatever, is going to be mounted. For our purposes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw the Badger repeater from the front of the Cutlass on this. This just gives me something that is a little more spray and pray. I can use that while I'm at range, and then once I dial in and I have a really good shot on the target, then bring in the Omniski 6 lasers as needed. So this does have 3 turret mounts. The 325A, the interdiction system, does actually come with missile racks on the wings. And it comes with big missile racks. The 325A is designed for pulling big ships, cruiser and above size, and keeping them locked down, and if need be, it can hit them with these missiles. The early version of the 300i, I swear, and you can't quote me on this, but I remember almost without a doubt, there used to be some small missiles on the 300 series. I thought they were mounted on the underside of the wing. They might have been on one of the verticals. I don't exactly remember, but they're clearly not there anymore. There's no mount points for them either. There's no hard points for them. So as such, you have basically, by default, 2 high damaging, low rate of fire, low output weapons. You can mount a third one to the front nose if you want. And that's basically the ship. The only other thing to talk about would be the shields, and the shields are kind of lackluster. They will take one good strafe from a ship and survive that with a relatively slow recharge, but they're definitely not combat shields. This isn't a combat ship. And that kind of brings me to my conclusion right now. And that is the 300 series, at least with where the game is right now, there's not a huge amount of role or purpose for this ship. In the future with cargo, well, even with cargo, are you going to carry 4 units in a 300 series when you could get 11 units in an Aurora or more units in an Avenger, the price point of this ship for what it brings to the game world doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. If you want a combat ship, you can get a Mustang cheaper, and the Mustang's going to be a better combat ship. If you want an all-purpose ship, you can get the Aurora for cheaper, and it's going to be a better all-purpose ship. If you want something that's elegant and sleek, that has a little bit of utility, for $5 or $10 more, you can get an Avenger, and it's going to be an all-around better ship, a little bit slower. The only thing this ship does better than all those other ships is it is a little bit faster in a straight line. But you're not going to be dogfighting, and if you're just going point A to point B, you're going to be using warp. So you don't need to be 15, 20 miles, not miles, but meters per hour or whatever, meters per second faster when you're just coming into land or dock. So there's not a huge amount of purpose for this. I could see, as the game develops, a few small possibilities for this. First of all, the interdictor does have some real possibilities. Since it is a small, fast ship, it could make for turret crews on capital ships have a tough time hitting this guy. So it could make for a very good tackling ship. Jump in there, tackle down a cruiser, destroyer, or whatever, prevent it from fleeing while the rest of your fleet rallies up and comes in after it. Could work for that. We have to wait and see how the interdiction's actually going to work. I don't even honestly know. Is interdiction going to be used to pull ships out of warp, or is it going to be to prevent ships from going to warp? Are we going to be able to chase ships down currently in warp? Or is it maybe to pull ships out of cruise and prevent them from going into cruise? Does it maybe have nothing to do with warp? I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns there. But there is possibility for this ship in that interdiction role. I could see that actually working. The only other role I've been able to put together in my mind where this ship has utility for would be a very rare commodity, high-end smuggled good. Since you can only carry 4, maybe there'll be some very rare commodity that is contraband. Say drugs or something. You could load 2, 3, 4 of these on this ship, and due to its size, its speed, and its profile, maybe run past security forces with it. Something that an Aurora might not be able to do, you could maybe do with this guy. Run it dark, get going real fast, and whip by before they have a chance to react. That could be the one other possibility, but that's going to be dependent on if there's actually goods of small commodity, high value that is worth smuggling. If you're going to be running just goods in general, you're going to want a Cutlass or even an Avenger, just something with more cargo space, or an Aurora with more cargo space. This would only work as that smuggling ship if it is a very high value good that you only have a couple of. I don't know. Like I said, I want to love this ship. It is one of the original ships I bought, or it is the original ship I bought. But all in all, if you just want aesthetics, if you just want clean looking cockpit and a sexy looking exterior, sure, the 300 series is fine. But where it's sitting price wise for what it brings to the table, every other option around it in terms of price point does what this thing does just as well, if not better, at almost every single point with the exception of top speed, and bring more utility and function and option to the game than the 300i does, or the 300 series in general. Even the exploration ship, how much exploring are you going to want to do in a one-person fighter, or one-person little stunt ship? Not a fighter, but how much exploring? I mean, I suppose you could use this, take this from a capital ship, jump in, and use this to jump out to different planets in a zone and scan them down, and then come back, kind of a short-range explorer. But I think most people exploring are going to want to be in a constellation or something big that they can actually, land and collect things and do things with, not just a single-person ship. I wish it was better. I want to justify my original purchase, but it's gone. I've already traded it in and upgraded to something better. So that's the 300 series. Again, all that is subject to change. Maybe as the game evolves, we will find that there is some real use for the luxury touring ships and everything. For now, I think it's mainly just a status symbol. It's like, look at my pretty ship. It looks sexier than your ship. It doesn't do anything better, but it looks sexier than your ship. So that's what I think of the 300 series. Until next time, this has been Paller. Thanks for watching.